In the beginning of the movie, we see an ex-cop named Nick Cassidy. He is also an ex-convict who was accused of stealing a precious diamond. He goes to the Roosevelt Hotel and introduces him as Joe Walker. The attendant takes him to the requested room. After having his meal, he cleans all areas of the room to disappear his traces. Then he writes a note and opens the window of the room. He steps on the ledge outside the building and decides to spend a few hours there. In the following scene, we come to know why Nick is standing on a ledge. 1 month ago, he is in jail for a diamond heist and the court rejects his final appeal. Now he has to complete his 25-year sentence. Nick's ex-partner Officer Mike Ackerman comes to meet him. He tells him that his father is about to die. Nick asks him to get him out for a day so that he can meet his father. But the court only allows him to attend his father's funeral. Nick's brother Joey also arrives there with his girlfriend Angie. After the funeral, the two brothers get into an argument and start beating each other. When Nick's guards try to stop them, Nick takes his gun. Then he asks Joey to unlock his cuffs. He shoots at the police car and drives away in Joey's. The police starts following his vehicle. He manages to fool them and crashes his car into a train. He easily escaped from the accident and the police didn't find him. Then he goes to a hideout place and gets all necessary things he has needed. In the following scene, the authorities get to know about Nick's stunt and shut down the area. Police and the tactical unit are also arrived there. Detective Jack Doherty goes to the room and introduces himself to Nick. He tells him that he will help him to get him what he demands. Meanwhile, another detective Dante Marcus tries to manage a big crowd of people at ground floor. Jack tries to convince him to come inside. But Nick tells him that he will only talk to the police psychologist Lydia Mercer. Jack goes inside the room. He and Dante find Nick's note announcing, "I will exit this world as I entered." He also wrote that he is innocent. The detectives are unaware of his identity and Dante decides to collect more information about him. Jack calls the psychologist Lydia Mercer and tells her about Nick's stunt. He says the jumper has demanded to meet her specially. The police starts investigating Nick's past thinking that he is Joe Walker. When Lydia arrives at the hotel, Jack tells her that Jumper is about to suicide in 2 minutes. She looks around the room to get the information. She introduces herself to Nick and he tells her that he wants her to understand that he is going to finish his life. She gets confused why he has asked the detective to bring her. He says that she is popular face of the city and he needs her to get everyone's attention. Lydia talks about Nick to Jack but he doesn't trust her and gives her 5 minutes to convince the Jumper. On the other side, Mike is searching for Nick and doesn't know about the situation. He thinks that Nick is hiding something from him about his prison escape. He asks the police to trace Cassidy brothers. In the following scene, we are shown another major character in Nick's life named David Englander. He is the owner of the Roosevelt Hotel. He runs many businesses in the city and hates poor people. Jack informs Lydia that they didn't find any prints in the room. She tries to convince Nick with a cigarette to get his print but failed. She suspects on him and thinks that he doesn't want to jump. She tries to convince him again saying, she actually cares for his life. Suddenly he gets a call from his brother on his secret microphone and he tells him that he has arrived. Nick tries to make Lydia leave the place so that he can listen to his brother. Joey and his girlfriend are part of Nick's secret plan. The media is also covering the whole situation and they declare Lydia involvement in the case. They also show an old case from a month ago when she failed to convince a man from suicide. She gets frustrated by the news. Jack and Lydia are worried about Nick's plan. Jack asks her to keep her eyes on Nick and he decides to collect more information. Meanwhile, Nick is talking to his brother secretly when Joey and Angie are breaking into David's building. Nick can also watch them while standing on the ledge from the other side. When the security is disarmed, the couple drills holes on the roof of the building and set up some explosives. When they give a sign to Nick that they are going to blast the roof, he distracts Lydia and other people. After the explosion, Joey and Angie enter the building and Nick tries to fool Lydia. He asks for a cigarette and says he knows everything about her personal life and career. He tells her that they have same interests. She says that he seems not to jump but Nick tells her not to give up or tries to stop him. When she gets inside the room, she gives her cigarette to the officer so they can get his print from it. Joey tells Nick that they have entered the building. Meanwhile, Mike goes back to the station and learns about the Jumper but he doesn't know that he is Nick. Lydia gives another attempt to convince Nick to come inside. Suddenly a news helicopter comes too close to them and Nick is about to fall off the ledge. Mike sees the news and realizes that the Jumper is Nick Cassidy. He gets a call from a storage unit in Joey's name. Joey and Angie down the lift shaft and manages the CCTV. They both move toward David's secret room where he keeps all his expensive jewelry. Angie notices a sensor and they tells about it to Nick. Lydia realizes that Nick is waiting for something and she asks the agents to get his identity fast. She again comes out and asks Nick about his secret plan. He confuses her with his psychology answers. She tries again to find the matter while he is listening his brother secretly. He gives them reply and clues while talking to Lydia. Joey doesn't understand him but Angie gets what he has said. She says it's a heat sensor and they need to freeze it. Then they use a fire extinguisher to cool down the sensor. Meanwhile, Nick tells Lydia that he knows she had taken his print from the cigarette and she wants to know about his real identity. On the other side, Mike goes to Nick's storage unit and finds Nick and Walker's files. Dante gets the print and informs Lydia that the jumper is Nick Cassidy. He tells her that he was in a prison for stealing $40 million diamond called the Monarch. He tells her that this diamond belongs to David Englander and he is also the owner of the hotel. Lydia and Jack realize that Nick wants to prove his innocence. She learns Mike was his partner so she calls him to explain the situation. Mike has burnt all the files he found about Nick and Joe. Dante informs Englander's security and asks them to check the vault. Meanwhile, Joey and Angie are trying to break the vault. Lydia asks Nick to tell her the whole point of his stunt. He tells her that he needs her help to prove his innocence. But she doesn't believe him. Then he says that he will definitely jump off the building if he will not get justice. Meanwhile, the police and Englander's security head toward the vault building. Nick tells Joey about it and he asks him to give them more time to hide. Nick starts throwing money from the ledge and all the people down gone mad. They block the streets and stop the security to enter the building. Angie sets up a camera to get the password. Just then the police and the security get inside the building. Joey and Angie hide themselves in a secret spot. Dante informs Englander about Nick. He gets angry about the situation and thinks it's not a coincidence that Nick chooses to perform his stunt on his conference day. Dante assures him not to worry but he threatens him that he will ruin his life if he will not handle the situation. Back at Vault Building, the security head takes the police inside Vault Room. He enters the password and explains all the security measures to the police. He convinces them no one can break his security. He also calls Dante to inform about the security check. Then Dante goes to Nick's building and tells Lydia that she has only 15 minutes to get Nick inside the room. On the other side, Mike is driving toward the hotel. Joey and Angie come out and go back to the vault room. Lydia tells Nick that if he doesn't come inside, the tactical unit will catch him. Just then he tells her about diamond heist. He says the diamond was stolen by David's men who attack on him when he was transporting the Monarch. David was about to bankrupt but instead of selling the diamond, he made a plan of heist to get big insurance. Lydia wants to believe him but she hesitates when Nick tells her that the police was also involved in the heist. She decides to investigate his case. Just then Mike also arrives at the hotel. He meets Dante before he goes to the ledge. An officer brings Nick's personal documents they found in the cell and Mike takes them. Lydia talks to Jack about Nick's past but he convinces her that Nick is guilty. Then she asks Dante about Nick's heist case involving another officer, Joe Walker. She thinks that it is connected to Nick's case but Dante denies it. When she tells him that Nick will not jump, Dante orders the tactical unit to get into the action. Mike sees the files from Nick's cell and removes a few of them before he gets into the room. Then he gives the rest to Jack. Lydia questions him about David but he tells her that he doesn't know much about him. She doubts on Mike and tries to stop him to meet Nick. Meanwhile, Angie put off her clothes and wears a fireproof suit. Then she enters a vent to get into the vault room. She has to turn off the security system but she needs Nick's help for that. Lydia calls him back into the room again and Nick asks her to buy him more time. Jack finds some explosives data in the documents. Meanwhile, Nick tells Angie to short-circuit the main processor and shut down the sensor. But she gets confused at wiring. Luckily she cuts the right wire and turns off all the sensors. The tactical unit is ready to catch Nick and Lydia asks him about the explosives. Jack tells her that she has to clear the windows but she starts arguing with him. When Dante and others ignore her she also steps on the ledge. Meanwhile Joey and Angie break the vault and open it. They find David's all precious things. But their eyes are only looking for the Monarch diamond. When they search for it Nick and Lydia stand on the ledge. When they don't find the Monarch, they tell Nick about it and Lydia notices him talking to someone. Nick tells her about his plan. Now the diamond is not there so Joey decides to follow the plan B. He activates the alarm to distract the security. David arrives to check his vault and tells his men to keep the cops out while he checks inside. He has kept the monarch in another safe which he never shows to anyone. He feels relaxed to find the diamond and decides to take it with him. Lydia comes inside the room and asks the police to talk with internal affairs about Nick's case. Mike also returns and takes Jack out of the room. He locks him outside so he can talk to Nick alone. He tells him that he can help him. Nick tells him that they are talking to internal affairs, which makes him worried, and he tries to grab him. Dante asks the tactical unit to catch Nick, but two agents drop down as he attacks them. He manages to save himself and jumps on another ledge. The crowd starts cheering for Nick. Then he runs through the hotel and Dante follows him. When David returns to his office, he finds Joey and Angie there. Joey asks him for the diamond. After getting the diamond, they force him to cuff himself in his office and leave. When they arrive at reception area, they gives a bag to the receptionist, who is already involved in their plan. He takes the diamond out quietly and puts it in his jacket. David tells Dante that Joey has taken the diamond. Then Dante informs tactical unit that Nick has an explosive trigger and they have to take it down. Lydia is searching for Nick and Mike inside the hotel. She gets a call from internal affairs and the agent informs her that they have circumstantial evidence on Dante and Mike. Meanwhile, Nick is followed by the tactical unit. While running, he meets the receptionist and he gives him the jacket with diamond. He tries to confuse the officers in other direction. Nick goes to the hotel and steps out the room again. Then he climbs up the hotel to go to the terrace. Dante catches Angie and Joey. He tortures them and asks for the diamond. Meanwhile, Nick and Lydia are caught by the police at terrace. Dante also arrives there and arrests Lydia for obstruction. He asks the tactical unit to let him alone with Nick. Suddenly David comes there with Joey and tells Nick that he will kill his brother if he doesn't return the diamond. After getting the diamond back, David orders Dante to kill the brothers. Lydia escapes from the police and runs to the terrace. Dante asks Nick to jump off the building or he will throw his brother. Suddenly Mike arrives and shoots Dante. But he also gets shot by him. Nick runs to him and he apologizes him for setting him up in diamond heist. When Dante is going to kill them, Lydia comes there and shoots him. Joey tells Nick that David is about to leave. With no fear, Nick jumps off the terrace and lands on an air mattress set up by the police. He runs to David and punches him. He takes the diamond from his suit and shows it to everyone. Later, Lydia helps Nick to get out of the prison. After this, they visit a bar where everyone is waiting for Nick. At the party, Joey proposes Angie with a ring which he stole from David's safe.